What happens when a snobbish luxury car dealer publicly humiliates someone based on their appearance, not realizing he's talking to one of Hollywood's biggest stars? This true story of karma, compassion, and unexpected consequences will leave you stunned. And by the end, you'll see why Keanu Reeves continues to be called the most humble superstar in Hollywood. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. The gleaming showroom of elite motorsports sparkled under carefully positioned spotlights, each beam highlighting the curves of Italian sports cars and German luxury sedans that most people could only dream of owning. The dealership, nestled in the wealthiest part of Beverly Hills, catered exclusively to the ultra-rich, celebrities, tech moguls, and old money families who thought nothing of dropping $500,000 on their newest toy. The marble floors were polished to mirror-like perfection, reflecting the vibrant colors of the automotive masterpieces on display. Harold Whitfield, the 58-year-old sales manager, made his way across the showroom floor with the confident stride of someone who belonged among luxury. His tailored Italian suit had cost more than what most people earned in a month, his Swiss watch more than some people's annual salary. His silver hair was perfectly styled, and his shoes were polished to a shine that rivaled the cars surrounding him. For 30 years, Harold had built his career on knowing who belonged in his showroom and who didn't. He had an almost supernatural ability to spot wealth and status from a single glance, or so he believed. His staff feared him, his competitors respected him, and his customers tolerated him because he delivered the exclusivity they craved. "Remember," Harold instructed a group of new salespeople huddled around him for their morning briefing, "our clients aren't just buying transportation, they're buying membership to an elite club. It's our job to make them feel special, to validate that they belong here." He straightened the pocket square in his suit jacket with manicured fingers, and equally important, to discourage those who don't. The novice salespeople nodded eagerly, absorbing his every word. All except one, Miguel Ramirez, a 24-year-old recent college graduate who had landed the job through relentless determination and a genuine passion for exceptional automobiles. "But sir," Miguel ventured cautiously, "shouldn't we treat everyone with respect? I mean, appearances can be deceiving, right?" Harold's smile didn't reach his cold blue eyes. "That's a lovely sentiment, Miguel. Perhaps appropriate for the ordinary dealerships where you worked before. But this," he gestured around the showroom, "this is elite motorsports. Our time is valuable, our inventory is exclusive, and our clientele expect us to maintain certain standards." Miguel nodded reluctantly, unconvinced but unwilling to jeopardize his dream job on his first week. "Now," Harold continued, clapping his hands together, "today we have the new Porsche 911 GT3 arriving. Retail starts at $250,000, but our custom version is $315,000. I expect it to sell before the weekend." He glanced at his watch. "Carter, you handle the Wilsons when they arrive at 11. Linda, the social media influencer coming at noon, is yours, though I doubt she's a serious buyer. Miguel, you handle the walk-ins today." Miguel's face fell slightly. Walk-ins at Elite Motorsports were rare and almost never resulted in sales. It was Harold's way of putting the new guy in his place. The morning passed slowly. The showroom remained mostly empty except for scheduled appointments handled by the senior salespeople. Miguel busied himself learning the specifications of each vehicle, mentally rehearsing his sales pitch in case someone actually walked in. It was precisely 1:37 p.m. when the glass doors slid open, admitting a breeze of warm California air and a casually dressed man in his late 50s. The man wore faded jeans with a small tear at one knee, scuffed motorcycle boots that had clearly seen thousands of miles of road, and a plain grey t-shirt that had been washed countless times. His dark hair fell to his shoulders in slightly messy waves, and several days' worth of stubble shadowed his face. He carried a motorcycle helmet under one arm and motorcycle gloves in his free hand. Harold, who had been explaining the finer points of the Lamborghini Aventador's carbon fiber construction to a client, paused mid-sentence as his gaze fell on the newcomer. His eyes narrowed as he assessed the visitor from head to toe. Everything about the man screamed average, and average didn't belong in elite motorsports. Miguel, noticing the visitor, immediately straightened his tie and moved toward the entrance with a genuine smile. "Welcome to Elite Motorsports. I'm Miguel. Can I help you with anything today?" The man returned the smile warmly, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Thanks, Miguel. I'm interested in looking at the Porsche 911 GT3 I heard you have on display." Miguel's eyebrows raised slightly in surprise, but he quickly recovered. "Excellent choice, sir. We just received that model this morning. Would you like me to tell you about its features?" The visitor nodded. "That would be great. I've been following its development for a while, but there's nothing like seeing it in person." Before Miguel could respond, Harold smoothly inserted himself into the conversation, placing a firm hand on the younger man's shoulder, his fingers digging in just enough to communicate a warning. "I'll handle this, Miguel. Why don't you help the couple that just came in over by the Mercedes?" Harold's tone left no room for argument, despite the fact that the couple he referred to was already being assisted by another salesperson. Miguel hesitated, catching the apologetic look from the visitor. Something about the man seemed familiar, but Miguel couldn't quite place it. "Of course, Mr. Whitfield," he said finally, stepping away but remaining within earshot, his curiosity piqued. Harold turned to the man, his smile not reaching his eyes. "I'm Harold Whitfield, sales manager." He deliberately did not offer his hand to shake. "The GT3 is quite an exceptional machine. It starts at $250,000, and this particular model with its custom specifications is priced at $315,000. He emphasized the price, watching carefully for the visitor's reaction. The man nodded thoughtfully. "That sounds about right based on what I've read. I'd like to take a closer look, if possible." Something in the visitor's calm response irritated Harold. There was no reaction to the price, no widening of the eyes, no nervous shift in posture, no clearing of the throat. Either this man was legitimately wealthy despite his appearance, or he was wasting Harold's valuable time. "Before we proceed," Harold said, his voice taking on an edge, "may I ask what you currently drive? We like to understand our clients' automotive preferences to better serve their needs." The last part was added as a thin veneer over his obvious skepticism. "Sure," the man said easily. "I have a few motorcycles, a Harley, an Arch KR GT1 that I helped design, also a Porsche Carrera from the 90s that I've had for years. Great car, but I'm looking for something with more recent engineering." Harold's smile tightened. Arch motorcycles were expensive, sure, about $85,000, but not elite motorsports expensive. And an old Carrera? This man was clearly out of his depth. "I see," Harold said coolly. "And may I ask what line of work you're in? Our financing department requires this information." The lie slipped out smoothly. Elite Motorsports certainly didn't ask about employment for cash purchases, but it gave Harold another opportunity to assess the visitor's credibility. The man seemed to hesitate, as if reluctant to answer. He ran a hand through his long hair, a gesture that struck Harold as unprofessional. "I work in entertainment," he finally said. "How interesting," Harold replied, though his tone suggested it was anything but. "Are you a producer? Director?" The skepticism in his voice was barely concealed. "I'm an actor," the man said simply. Harold's patience was wearing thin. An actor? Of course. In Los Angeles, everyone was an actor, from the barista with 3 lines in a student film to the waiter who once stood in the background of a TV commercial. "Well, sir," Harold said, his voice now dripping with condescension, "the GT3 is one of our most exclusive vehicles. Perhaps I could show you something more attainable. We do have some pre-owned options that might better suit your budget. There's a very nice Audi A5 that just came in, priced at a more reasonable $55,000. The man's expression remained calm, but several customers nearby had stopped to watch the interaction. One woman in her 40s, wearing a tasteful Chanel suit, was whispering to her husband, her eyes wide with recognition as she looked at the visitor. "I'm specifically interested in the GT3, the man insisted politely. "I've done my research, and it's exactly what I'm looking for." Harold let out a sigh that was just dramatic enough to be insulting. "Sir, with all due respect, the GT3 is a vehicle for serious buyers. Just to be clear, we don't offer test drives of our high-end models unless there's a verified proof of funds. Our clientele includes professional athletes, successful entrepreneurs, and A-list celebrities who—" "Excuse me," the woman in the Chanel suit interrupted, approaching them with an expression of disbelief. "I'm sorry for intruding, but aren't you—" Harold cut her off with a raised hand. "Madam, I'm with a customer at the moment. Parker can assist you if you need help." His irritation at being interrupted was palpable. The woman looked embarrassed but retreated, continuing to steal glances at the visitor. Harold's composure finally cracked. "Look," he said, lowering his voice but not enough to prevent others from hearing. "I've been in this business for 30 years. I know when someone can afford one of these cars, and when someone's just here to waste my time dreaming about what they can't have." He gestured dismissively at the man's worn jeans and scuffed boots. "It's clear you came in off the street looking to sit in a fancy car and take a few selfies. We get people like you every week. But this isn't a tourist attraction or a museum. This is a place of business where serious buyers come to make serious investments. You can't afford this car. You probably can't afford any car in this showroom. So please, get out before you embarrass yourself further." A shocked silence fell over the showroom. Miguel looked mortified from across the room, his face flushed with second-hand embarrassment. Several customers stared openly, some with disgust at Harold's behavior, others with growing excitement as they recognized the man being insulted. The man in the t-shirt stood perfectly still for a moment, his expression unreadable. For a brief second, something flickered in his dark eyes, not anger, but something closer to disappointment. Then, without a word, he nodded once and turned to walk toward the exit. Harold smirked, satisfied that he'd correctly assessed another pretender. But his triumph was short-lived. An older gentleman in an impeccable suit stepped directly into the visitor's path. The gentleman was in his 70s, with the confident bearing of old money and significant influence. "Excuse me," the gentleman said loudly enough for the entire showroom to hear, "but aren't you Keanu Reeves?" The visitor smiled slightly and nodded. "Yes, I am." The gentleman beamed, extending his hand. "Richard Townsend. I thought it was you. My grandchildren and I loved you in the John Wick films, and The Matrix is still one of my all-time favorites. Would you mind terribly if I took a photo with you? My grandkids would never forgive me if I missed the opportunity." "Not at all," Keanu replied kindly, placing his helmet on a nearby table to pose for the photo. Harold's face drained of color so rapidly that a nearby customer wondered if he needed medical assistance. Keanu Reeves, one of Hollywood's biggest stars, worth over $400 million. Known for blockbuster franchises including The Matrix, John Wick, and countless other films spanning a career of nearly 4 decades. And Harold had just publicly humiliated him in front of a showroom full of witnesses, many of whom were now pulling out their phones. As Keanu posed for a photo with the older gentleman, the woman in the Chanel suit approached again, this time with her husband. "Mr. Reeves, I'm so sorry I didn't say something earlier," she said, glaring briefly at Harold. "My daughter is a huge fan. She's actually studying film because of your work. Would it be possible to get an autograph?" "Of course," Keanu said with a genuine smile, signing the business card she offered. Within moments, a small crowd had formed. Customers and even other salespeople approached, phones out, excited to meet the famous actor. One young salesman was visibly shaking as he told Keanu how the Matrix had changed his life. Through it all, Keanu remained gracious and patient, taking time with each person, listening to their stories with authentic interest. Harold stood frozen, his career flashing before his eyes as he imagined the social media posts that would soon flood the internet, detailing how he had tried to throw Keanu Reeves out of a luxury car dealership. Miguel seized the opportunity and approached Keanu once the crowd had thinned slightly. "Mr. Reeves, I apologize for the misunderstanding earlier. If you're still interested in the GT3, I'd be honored to assist you." Keanu considered for a moment, then nodded. "That would be great, thank you, Miguel." The fact that he remembered the young salesman's name wasn't lost on those watching. As Miguel led Keanu toward the Porsche, parting the small crowd that had gathered, Harold finally snapped out of his stupor. His face now flushed with a desperate panic, he rushed to intercept them, practically pushing past two customers in his haste. "Mr. Reeves," he said, his voice now cloyingly sweet, "I must sincerely apologize for the misunderstanding. I didn't recognize you without the John Wick beard and longer hair and—" Keanu raised a hand, stopping Harold mid-sentence. The entire showroom fell silent, cell phones still recording, capturing what would surely become a viral moment. When Keanu spoke, his voice was quiet but clear enough for those nearby to hear. "There was no misunderstanding," Keanu said. "You made a judgment about someone's worth based solely on their appearance. The problem isn't that you failed to recognize me. The problem is how you treat people you don't recognize as important." Harold's mouth opened and closed without producing words, resembling nothing so much as a fish out of water. "I'd still like to see the car," Keanu continued, turning back to Miguel. "But first, I'd like to speak with the owner of this dealership." Harold's face went from flushed to gray. "Mr. Reeves, I assure you that won't be necessary. I'm authorized to offer you our best." "I'm not interested in special treatment," Keanu interrupted, his tone firm, but not unkind. "I'm interested in how this business is run and whether its values align with where I choose to spend my money." A tall woman in a tailored burgundy suit approached, her heels clicking authoritatively on the marble floor. "Mr. Reeves, I'm Diane Ellis, Vice President of Operations. My father, Thomas Ellis, is the owner and CEO of Elite Motorsports. He's in his office. I'd be happy to take you to him right away." She shot Harold a look that could have frozen lava. "Mr. Whitfield, please wait in the conference room. We'll discuss this matter shortly." As Diane led Keanu toward the back offices, the showroom erupted into a buzz of excited whispers. Customers who had witnessed the entire exchange were already sharing videos on social media, some tagging major entertainment news outlets. Three salespeople huddled together, speculating in hushed tones about Harold's imminent demise. Miguel stood by the GT3, still somewhat in shock at the events unfolding around him. He jumped slightly when his phone vibrated in his pocket, a text from a friend at another dealership who had already somehow seen a video of the incident. "Dude, is that your boss dissing Keanu?" In Thomas Ellis's expansive corner office, with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Century City, Keanu Reeves sat across from the 72-year-old founder of Elite Motorsports. Thomas was a car enthusiast who had built his empire from a single used car lot in the 1970s to what was now one of the most prestigious luxury automotive groups in the country. "Mr. Reeves, first let me say what an honor it is to have you in our showroom," Thomas began, his weathered face serious. "And let me also express my deepest apologies for how you were treated today. That is not what Elite Motorsports stands for." Keanu nodded thoughtfully. "Thank you, but I'm not here for an apology. At least not for myself." Thomas raised an eyebrow. "I'm not sure I understand." "When I walked into your showroom today, I was treated a certain way because of how I looked," Keanu explained. "It wasn't pleasant, but I've experienced worse. What concerns me is that if that's how your staff treats someone they don't recognize as important, Then how many other potential customers have been humiliated or turned away? Thomas's face darkened. You make an excellent point, Mr. Reeves. Please, call me Keanu. Keanu, Thomas corrected himself. May I ask, what would you like to see happen here? I assure you, Harold Whitfield's behavior today does not reflect our company values. Keanu considered the question carefully. I'm not here to demand anyone lose their job. That's your decision as the business owner. I'm just asking a question that you might want to consider. Is this how you want your business represented? 20 minutes later, Keanu Reeves emerged from the office with Thomas Ellis. They shook hands warmly before Keanu rejoined Miguel to complete his purchase of the GT3. Has anyone reviewed the features with you yet? Miguel asked nervously as they approached the sleek machine. Keanu smiled. Not yet. But I've done my homework. Still, I'd love to hear your take on it. For the next 30 minutes, Miguel walked Keanu through every detail of the GT3, from its 502 horsepower naturally aspirated flat-six engine to its track-focused aerodynamics. To Miguel's surprise and delight, Keanu asked intelligent, informed questions and listened attentively to each answer. You really know your stuff, Keanu commented as Miguel explained the differences between the various driving modes. Miguel blushed slightly. Cars have been my passion since I was a kid. My dad was a mechanic, taught me everything about engines before I could even drive. I actually have a mechanical engineering degree, but I love connecting people with the perfect car, so here I am. Keanu nodded appreciatively. That passion shows. It makes a difference when someone genuinely cares about what they're doing. As Miguel processed the paperwork for the purchase, Harold Whitfield emerged from the conference room, looking shell-shocked. He glanced at Keanu, opened his mouth as if to say something, then thought better of it, and headed straight for the exit, not even stopping to collect his personal items from his office. That evening, as the staff was closing up, Diane Ellis gathered the sales team. As some of you may have guessed, Harold Whitfield is no longer with Elite Motorsports, she announced without preamble. His actions today violated our core values in ways I shouldn't have to explain. The salespeople exchanged glances, some hiding smiles, others looking appropriately solemn. Moving forward, Diane continued, we will be implementing some changes. First, Miguel Ramirez will be taking over as interim sales manager. Miguel's jaw dropped. Ms. Ellis, I've only been here a week. I don't think you demonstrated exceptional customer service and product knowledge today, Diane interrupted. More importantly, you showed respect to every person who walked through our doors, exactly what we expect from our leadership team. What no one in the showroom knew was what Keanu had said to Thomas in that private meeting. He hadn't demanded Harold's firing or Miguel's promotion. Instead, he had simply explained what happened and asked a single question. Is this how you want your business represented? That question had prompted Thomas Ellis to review security footage from the past month, revealing that Harold's treatment of Keanu wasn't an isolated incident. Dozens of potential customers had been subjected to similar discrimination based solely on their appearance. 2 weeks later, Elite Motorsports announced a new company-wide policy. All sales staff would undergo regular training on unconscious bias and respectful customer service. They also instituted a blind greeting policy, where every visitor would be treated with the same level of respect regardless of appearance or perceived wealth. They even revised their mission statement, adding a new core value. We recognize that true luxury is not just in the products we sell, but in the dignity with which we treat every person who walks through our doors. The story might have ended there, a satisfying tale of justice served, but Keanu Reeves had never been one for conventional endings. 3 months after the incident, Keanu returned to Elite Motorsports, still dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, but this time, he wasn't alone. With him was James Fuller, a 67-year-old retired mechanic with calloused hands and a weathered face that told the story of a life spent working hard under the hoods of countless vehicles. James had once helped Keanu repair his vintage motorcycle on the side of the road years earlier, refusing any payment and spending 2 hours getting the actor back on his way. They had stayed in touch over the years, forming an unlikely friendship built on a mutual appreciation for mechanical craftsmanship. During their conversations, James had mentioned his lifelong dream of driving a Ferrari, a dream he had long ago accepted would never come true. Keanu had remembered. "Miguel," Keanu called out as he entered the showroom, "I'd like you to meet my friend James." Miguel, now comfortably settled into his role as sales manager, greeted them warmly. "Welcome back, Mr. Reeves, and it's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Fuller." "Just James' son," the older man insisted, his eyes already wandering to the Ferrari 488, displayed on a rotating platform in the center of the showroom. "My God," he whispered, "it's even more beautiful in person." "Would you like to sit in it?" Miguel offered, recognizing the look of pure automotive love in the old mechanic's eyes. James looked at Keanu uncertainly. "Can I?" "That's why we're here," Keanu confirmed with a smile. For the next hour, James explored the Ferrari with the wonder of a child on Christmas morning. Miguel patiently explained every feature, answering the mechanic's technical questions with genuine enthusiasm. When Miguel offered to start the engine so James could hear it, the older man's eyes welled with tears. "I never thought I'd be this close to a machine like this," James admitted, running his weathered hands reverently over the Ferrari's sleek hood. "Thank you." Keanu watched from a short distance, quiet satisfaction evident in his expression. When Miguel approached him while James continued to admire the car, Keanu explained his purpose. "I'd like to arrange something special for James," he said. "He's been a good friend for many years." Though Keanu could easily have purchased the $330,000 vehicle outright as a gift, he instead arranged something more meaningful. A full-day Ferrari experience at a professional track, where James could drive various models to his heart's content, pushed to their limits in ways that wouldn't be possible on public roads. "It's not about buying things," Keanu explained quietly to Miguel as they watched James still circling the Ferrari, taking in every detail. "It's about creating moments that matter." When Keanu presented James with the details of the track day experience, the older man was speechless. "I can't accept this," he finally managed to say. "It's too much." "It's not enough," Keanu replied, placing a hand on his friend's shoulder. "You've given me your friendship with no expectations. Please let me give you this experience." James finally nodded, too overcome with emotion to speak further. As they were preparing to leave, Diane Ellis approached with a small wrapped package. "Mr. Reeves, we have something for you as well," she said, handing him the gift. "It's a small token of our appreciation for the valuable lesson you taught us." Keanu unwrapped the package to find a custom keychain featuring a miniature version of his new GT3, along with a donation certificate showing that Elite Motorsports had contributed $50,000 to a children's hospital in his name. "We've also established a scholarship fund for underprivileged youth interested in automotive engineering and design," Diane explained. "We're calling it the Beyond Appearances Initiative." Keanu smiled genuinely. That's wonderful. Thank you." As Keanu and James left the dealership, Miguel walked them to their car. "You know," he said hesitantly, "the video of what happened that day went viral. Over 20 million views now." Keanu nodded. "I heard. But what many people don't know is that you came back the next day, before the story broke online," Miguel continued. "You asked us not to mention it to anyone, but you returned with coffee for every employee, including Harold, even though he was already gone. You took time to talk with each person. Why did you do that?" Keanu considered the question. Because what happened wasn't about everyone else at the dealership. It was about one person's behavior. It didn't seem fair to let that overshadow all the other good people working here. Miguel shook his head in amazement. "That day changed everything for me. Not just the promotion, though I'm grateful for that, but seeing how someone with your level of fame and success could remain so human." Keanu seemed almost embarrassed by the praise. "We're all just people trying to find our way," he said simply. "Some of us just have more publicly documented journeys than others." The story spread across social media, covered by news outlets around the world, inspiring countless reaction videos and think pieces about celebrity encounters, customer service, and judgment based on appearances. But what resonated most wasn't the humiliation of a snobbish salesman, or even the star power of Keanu Reeves. It was the simple reminder that true worth has nothing to do with appearance, fame, or wealth, and everything to do with how we treat each other. Elite Motorsports went on to become known not just for its luxury cars, but for its exceptional customer service to all who walked through its doors. Their Beyond Appearances initiative expanded to fund automotive education programs in underserved communities, giving opportunities to young people who might otherwise never have access to the industry. And Harold Whitfield? 6 months after the incident, he wrote a public letter of apology that was published in several automotive magazines. He had found work at another dealership, but something fundamental had changed in him. Former colleagues who encountered him reported that he was now often the first to greet every customer, regardless of what they were wearing or how they looked. Because in a single afternoon, he had learned what Keanu Reeves had known all along. You never know who someone is until you treat them with dignity and respect. As for Keanu, when asked about the incident during a press junket for his next film, he simply smiled and said, "It was just one of those moments where everyone had the opportunity to learn something, myself included." When pressed for details about what he had learned, Keanu thought for a moment before answering. "I was reminded that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't to demand justice for yourself. It's to create an opportunity for others to choose to be better." 1 year later, Elite Motorsports hosted a charity event that raised over $1 million for children's healthcare. The special guest who helped auction off a custom Porsche was none other than Keanu Reeves, dressed in a proper suit this time, though he arrived on his motorcycle. And the first car he admired upon entering wasn't the $1 million hypercar on display, but a lovingly restored 1969 Ford Mustang, brought in by a mechanic with calloused hands and a lifetime of stories to tell. Because sometimes, the most valuable things in a room filled with luxury have nothing to do with price tags, and everything to do with the genuine connections we make when we see beyond appearances. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more inspiring stories about celebrities who use their fame for good. And tell us in the comments, have you ever been judged by your appearance? How did you handle it? Remember, kindness costs nothing, but changes everything.